everyone. So, I'm going to go over the song essay guidelines. The basic requirements 5 full pages minimum, typed double spaced, 12 point Times New Roman font, MLA format. You'll need a works cited page for this one, and in text citations. Okay? So, in terms of sources, um, you only have one required source, and that's the song that you're going to analyze for this essay. And that song, because you're referencing it, needs to be cited as a source in the text in a works cited page. So, this is what's called a primary source. It's a source that you are interacting with directly rather than finding what somebody else has to say about it. Okay? So, this is the only required source. You do not need to go, to the library webpage or to the internet and do extra research. Okay? So you don't need to do that. You only need to cite the song. And I have some examples of how to cite a song down below that I'll show you. But an option for you is to choose one secondary source. So that's, going to the internet or going to the library and finding out what somebody else has to say about the song and using that in your essay. And not even just about your song. You could use it to talk about like music theory or something. Just any secondary source that you want to use, you can, but you cannot rely on it too heavily. You cannot adopt its claim as your own. It is to be used as support only. You do not have to use a secondary source at all, but if you do, I want you to be very, very careful. My recommendation is that before you even look at what anyone else has to say about the song, you figure out what you have to say about the song first. Okay, so figure out your claim, figure out what you want to say about the song, and then go out and find sources that you can use as evidence to back up the claim that you make. Okay, do not go out and go look for song meaning or look for interpretations of the song on the internet and just mimic what they say. My goal in this essay is to get you to use your brains. Okay, get you to use your own brain and your own observations about something and your own interpretation before you go out and find out what everybody else has to say about it. Okay? So you want to sort of draft your claim first, and then if you want, you can go out and find secondary sources. Okay? I beg you, please. Okay. So, what you're going to do in this essay is analyze a song of your choice. Any song, doesn't matter. I don't care about, explicit lyrics. If it's in quotes, you can put it. All right? But some songs are better for analysis than others, so choose wisely. Just because it's your favorite song doesn't mean it's necessarily the best one for analysis. Okay? So make sure that you find a song that you can come up with an analytical claim for, and not just one that you like. There are a lot of songs that I love, but they don't really have much room for analysis or interpretation. Okay? So, analysis is the act of taking something apart and looking at those parts in order to make a conclusion about the whole. A song is made up of these basic component parts. These could be broken down and made even more specific, or you could add to this list. This is just a kind of basic list of the component parts of a song. Okay? So there's song structure, so like verse, chorus, verse, hook, chorus, that sort of thing. That's the song structure, and you can analyze that. Lyrical content is another that often gets a lot of emphasis in song analysis. So make sure you're not just using lyrical content, just a note about that, but like basically the words of the song, you know, the lyrics. Theme is the meaning of the song or the message of the song, what the song wants you to learn or whatever. Literary devices are the sort of thing that you learned about in, you know, literature classes or whatever. Things like, imagery, metaphors, juxtaposition, those sorts of things are literary devices, and those show up in songs as well. Mood, so how something feels. And sound, which can be broken up into these sort of component parts in and of itself. So sound is a big component part, but it's made up of all of these smaller component parts, like vocality, how the voice sounds. Is it high? Is it low? Is it smooth? Is it scratchy? Is it, those sorts of things. Instrumentation, so the sounds that the instruments are making, the different instruments that are used, that sort of thing. What instruments get more sound, are in the foreground or the background. That's part of mixing, actually. Soundscape refers to overall sound. So, like, I know that some songs sound like they're underwater, right? So that's part of the soundscape, how it sounds overall. If you are a music nerd, like Phil Spector's Wall of Sound is a soundscape. Rhythm is the pacing of sound, how fast or slow. And then mixing loudness of specific sounds over others, what's in the foreground, what's in the background, what's to the left, what's to the right, those sorts of things. And this might not be a complete list. If you want to talk about other component parts that I haven't thought of here, please feel free. So you need to make an analytical claim about the song and then back up your claim with evidence. That evidence will be a description of one or more of these component parts. Do not, I repeat, do not use this list as a checklist for writing your paper. I do not want a song on song structure and then a song on lyrical I don't want a paragraph about song structure and then a paragraph about lyrical content and then a paragraph about theme and then a paragraph about literary devices and so on and so forth. I don't want you to do that. Please do not do that. I am adamant on this point because I've had people do it in the past. Do not give me a paragraph on each of these component parts. You will not use every single component part. You won't talk about every single component part, okay? You'll pick the component parts that are most relevant to your claim, okay? And you will write about those, okay? So, you'll start by making an analytical claim, and then you'll choose your evidence from these component parts. So in the introduction of the essay, you want to start by giving your reader an overview of the song, introducing it with title, artist, genre, and a brief synopsis of the song. I say genre, you don't have to have genre in there, but you do need to have the title, the artist, and a brief synopsis of the song. If the genre is relevant, then put the genre. And then this should be a few sentences tops, okay? And then you should move on to your analytical claim, okay? So once you've introduced the song and talked about what it's about, then you introduce your analytical claim, okay? Your claim cannot be obvious. You want your analysis to be about your interpretation of the song and not just a repetition of the song's central message. For instance, saying that a breakup song is about heartbreak, not a good claim. Okay, that's a fact. That's kind of an obvious fact, even. No kidding. Duh. Okay. So, an analytical claim is more about what is unclear than what is clear. It should be your interpretation of the song, and it should be something that a regular person might not hear automatically if they were listening to the same song, okay? So you should have no one saying to your claim, yeah, duh, of course. You should have people saying, I didn't think about that, but I can see that. Okay? So I've got a few example claims. We're going to listen to a song called Such Great Heights in class, and talk about it and do a little modeling on this. Basically, once we've listened to this song, these might make more sense, so you might want to go back over them after we have listened to the song in class and talked about it. But I'll just go over, kind of what I'm looking for. So, for instance, in the cover of Such Great Heights, Iron and Wine changes the focus of the song from how happy it is to reunite to how sad it is to be separated. So this is a good claim because it reveals something new about the song that listeners might not have thought about before. It requires evidence to back it up since it's not simply factual. I might use pacing, vocals, and instrumentation as evidence. And it's specific and focused on specific parts of the song, the mood, and its thematic meaning. So that's a good claim. A few bad claims. One, the song Such Great Heights is a song about being separated from a loved one. This is what the song is about. It's what happens in the song, okay? It's not analytical, it's factual. Duh, of course that's what the song's about. It doesn't reveal any new information to any reasonable listener, and no reasonable person would disagree. If you don't think anyone would disagree with your analytical claim, then it's not an analytical claim. It's a statement of fact. Okay? So, if you think that no one might see this a slightly different way, then it's not a good claim. Another example, the song Such Great Heights is about how nice it is to reunite with a loved one. This isn't factual per se because it is an opinion. It's more an opinion of feeling, a sort of personal feeling opinion. I personally feel that it's about how nice it is, but it's also not analytical. It's sort of obvious, and it doesn't really reveal anything new. And another example, Such Great Heights is a good song, or Such Great Heights is an interesting song. These are evaluative rather than analytical. They're judgments of quality rather than interpretations, okay? So it's just good or bad, interesting or not interesting. It's not actually analytical, it's evaluative. You're evaluating the song. So once you have your claim, you'll start picking out your evidence, and you're going to gather evidence by listening to the song yourself and reading the lyrics if there are any, and if you're going to use the lyrics. You don't have to use a song with lyrics, but if you use a song without lyrics, you kind of have to know a little bit about music, and you'll have to be really, really descriptive and detailed in describing what you're hearing. But I don't mind if you use a song without lyrics. I've read good song analysis papers about songs without lyrics. Okay. Your evidence will not come primarily from research, but from your own observations. Therefore, your evidence will need to be your descriptions of the artifacts, including quotes if the song has lyrics. And you may use analogies to describe sounds. So I understand that not everyone's a music nerd. You might not be able to isolate that this is an oboe or a harmonica or whatever. You might not really be able to isolate, specific sounds and describe them. So you can use analogies to do that. Like, it sounds like being underwater, or it sounds animalistic, or it sounds like falling. But try to describe why it sounds that way to the best of your ability. Isolate what it is that makes it sound that way if you can. If you decide to use a source for this paper, it must be to back up your own argument, not make your argument for you. Their claim should not be your claim. So I just want to reiterate that. So let's say that I use the underlying claim above, the good claim about the song Such Great Heights. I would need evidence and reasoning to back up that claim. So I would note first that the pace is way slower than the original song. Then I might note that the instrumentation is simpler, and then I might talk about how his voice is made more sad and haunting by an echo effect. Okay, so I'm looking at specific moments of the song. Obviously, my evidence would be a little bit more specific, so I would look at, I would look at the pacing of specific moments. I would look at the instrumentation of specific parts of the song. I might talk about specific lyrics when talking about what his voice is doing, but you get the idea. And then you need to interpret your evidence. It's not enough to give evidence, you have to interpret it. So, for instance, the slow rhythm of the song during the chorus makes the reunion of the two characters seem more nostalgic and sad. Now, that's an interpretation of the evidence for the purpose of proving the validity of my claim. So, I might then talk about specific lyrics from the chorus to talk about how that nostalgic feeling adds to the sort of emphasis on the more pain of separation part of the song than the happiness of the reunion part of the song. And it's something that you might disagree with. If you think no one would disagree, you're doing it wrong. Okay? You want people to disagree because then you have people you can persuade. Your purpose for this essay will not be to convince others that the interpretation that you make is the correct interpretation. Okay? You're not trying to say this is the correct interpretation. Okay? And you have to agree with it. You have to read it the same way. What you're trying to do is simply try to convince others that your interpretation is a valid one. Whether they read it the same way or not, you want them to go, oh, I can see that. I don't read it the same way, but I can see that interpretation. I can see how you would get there, especially based on your evidence, right? Okay. So that's what you're going for. Criteria is the same as always. And then down here is where I have examples of how to cite specific songs based on where you get it. So when you cite a song, you're going to cite it differently based on where you got it. So if you listen to it on CD, it's going to be cited a little bit differently than if you listen to it on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. Okay? So here's just the basic examples. If you're getting it from somewhere else, let me know, and I will work with you to try to figure out how to cite that. Okay? Or you can just get it from one of these other sources. So, please let me know if you have any questions about this assignment. I want to make sure that you do it correctly. So asking questions is crucial to that, and asking questions soon. So, email me if you have any questions, or you can ask me when you see me in class. I'm happy to elaborate on anything that you need me to in class. I would rather you ask questions and then do it right than go, I'm not sure, but I think this is how she wants us to do it, and then do it incorrectly. I would rather you just ask a question. So please ask questions, and I'll see you next class. Bye, guys.